This is your daily dose of all things royal. Welcome back, my gorgeous, good looking friends. Sky News today with this headline: They do everything that will help get them money. Meghan and Harry only interested in charity to line their pockets. I mean, are we surprised? Don't say that we didn't tell them. The headlines coming through today are like so ridiculous. Prince William put absolute ban on Prince Harry's return to royal family. Kate Middleton cared for by protective Charlotte as Prince Harry issued stark U.S. advice. Then we have the blame shifting onto Harry as being the divisive Duke and Meghan just innocently making jam, and Prince Harry Award shows his desperate need for attention. Well, I could say that it's both Harry and Meghan's desperate need for attention, as they are constantly putting out these stupid headlines, thinking that people believe what they're saying. I mean, to a certain extent, there are people believing it, but I don't think it's as much as they want. And right now, people like us, our eyes are rolling over saying, come on, journalists, do some actual work here. I think the good thing, though, and I'm getting this impression that people are not even clicking on these articles anymore because we're so tired of the same stories being recycled. Back in the day when investigative journalism was a thing, Harry and Meghan would have been a goldmine because there's so much that is yet to be talked about by the mainstream media, such as this censorship industrial complex. The problem with getting mainstream media to talk about this is the mainstream media is a part of this censorship industrial complex. And this is why we have to support these independent journalists who have larger platforms. I think for the most part, those that follow me have witnessed how difficult and how tough it is to get the visibility and reach for some of this information. You see how the mainstream media has dominated not only here in the US, but also around the world, and how the tech companies play a massive role in how information is given out. So, if they want to prioritize larger and more left leaning content, they're going to do so. And that's exactly what has been happening. We did have somewhat of a break as the Missouri versus Murphy case had been happening at the Supreme Court level. But with the recent ruling, I fully expect censoring to start kicking up into high gear since we are about to enter into our election here in the United States. And what we saw happen back in 2020, I think there's going to be more of that, but I think it's going to be worse. And I'm just sharing my opinion. Anticipate for it to get worse with Google and with Facebook, but I think the game changer here this time around is that they do not have control of X. And I think that is scaring a lot of those who enjoy this power that's currently in place at the moment. But the purpose of today's video, and the reason why I'm bringing this up, is to talk about this decision that came down on June 26 with the Missouri versus Murphy court case at the Supreme Court. Even though this could have been seen as a victory for the censorship industrial complex, the mainstream media chose not to talk very much about it. It barely made headlines. And I think one of the main reasons why is because this was not a unanimous opinion. Out of the 9 justices, 3 of the justices did honestly feel that the First Amendment was violated, and they gave detailed explanation as to where the violations were. Same violations that we were seeing within the Megxit community. So to summarize what this is all about, if you're coming in here late and this is the first time that you're seeing this, so the attorney generals for Missouri and Louisiana, along with 5 American citizens, accused government officials of illegally pressuring platforms, including Facebook and Twitter, now called X, to take down posts for the 2020 election as well as for COVID. And they described this operation as a massive, sprawling federal censorship enterprise, or what you're seeing in front of you, the censorship industrial complex that involved Harry and Meghan. Now, as time has gone on since the Twitter files exposed this sprawling censorship industrial complex, we are learning that there were other areas of speech that they were censoring, such as topics surrounding climate change, firearms, and most definitely so-called hate. of which Meghan and Harry fall into that category in having people suppressed and censored and pulled down from the Megxit community. But back to the case, the ruling found that the plaintiffs didn't show that the social media companies, which have their own rules limiting certain content, as we all know, took down posts because of government pressure. And in quotes, while the record reflects that the government defendants played a role in at least some of the platform's moderation choices, the evidence indicates that the platforms had independent incentives to moderate content and often exercise their own judgment. And this is what Amy Coney Barrett said, who is that court justice at the bottom right-hand corner next to Brett Kavanaugh. So, just so everybody understands what's happening now, is that the government can go back to communicating with the social media companies about controversial topics that they want pulled down. Business as usual, which is concerning because for the last several months, all those researchers like Renee DiResta and the University of Washington, and all these other little dictators that want to tell you what to think and how to feel, well, they're all now back to work, business as usual as well, because during this period when this was being deliberated, there was a court injunction to where the government was not allowed to talk to the social media companies. Hence the reason why I think many of us felt that this was going to stop these people from doing what they were doing because funding now, the American taxpayer funding, was going to stop. For instance, at Stanford, they completely dismantled Renee DiResta's team and started to put money into protecting children online. Remember, I told you that the direction or focus all of a sudden had pivoted towards focusing on the safety of children. Hence the reason why we've been seeing all this effort that Meghan and Harry have been putting in. But as a result of this, I think they're going to go back to doing what they have been doing, which are attempts to control what information people see online. This time around, they're going to be a little more stealth in how they do it. So, what did this Supreme Court exercise actually do? Like, what was the point? So, first, let's understand the role of our Supreme Court. The court's task is to interpret the meaning of a law, to decide whether a law is relevant to a particular set of facts or to rule on how a law should be applied. In this case, this was our First Amendment that they were ruling on. So the next question is answering how did this case make it to the Supreme Court? So this is how it works. And for those that don't know, the U.S. Supreme Court is the highest court in our country that's located in Washington, D.C. And so most cases come from appeal. And I do believe that these cases with Missouri and Louisiana ended up in appeal, and that's where they are at the moment. And the appeal is a request for a higher court to reverse whatever decision that the lower court had given. So most appeals actually come from federal courts, and they can come from state courts if a case deals with federal law. So let's take, for example, Samantha's defamation case. Right now, it's an appeal. And if, let's say, this appeal case doesn't go the way that she wants and she's dissatisfied with it, she can actually petition the court to review the decision of the lower court. And what happens, it goes to these justices that you see, the 9 of them, and they examine whatever petition that is put in front of them and the supporting materials. And then the justices actually vote. And with a decision to take on reviewing it, it would need 4 justices in order to accept it. So when we look at this case with Missouri versus Murphy, more than 4 justices said, yeah, we'll take a look at it. And what we saw happen when this case was selected was that the parties did make their arguments, and then the justices gave their opinion, which was the ruling that we see of this 6-3 of a remanded and reversed decision, meaning that it was sent back down to the lower courts for reconsideration. And that's where we are now. This case is not completely dead, but with an opinion of 6-3, I'm sure that opinion is going to weigh heavily on the courts, but they are still moving forward with it, which means these cases are still very much looming over the censorship industrial complex. And it's most likely why we're seeing this push for legislation in the direction towards protecting the children. Now, we've seen a lot of distraction from Harry and Meghan, but you notice the projects that involved focusing on the youth and controlling the youth in the realm of the digital space. You notice how quiet Archewell Fugazi Public Charity has been pertaining to projects that are designed to control the information online as well as the information space. Harry is dead serious about shutting down free press and freedom of speech. Meghan is a traitor to the United States by actively trying to take away Americans' First Amendment rights, starting with her own sister. And this group of holier-than-thou technocrats, crew here, are fully aware that what they had been doing was violating Americans' First Amendment rights in trying to control the information. Because if Harry and Meghan weren't aware or mindful of it, then they wouldn't have put it in this press release that they left out there with Axios. Hence now you're looking at this new effort to inoculate U.S. voters against AI. Let's not forget that this announcement was made where Harry and Meghan Markle's Archewell Fugazi Public Charity and this coalition have been working behind the scenes. You know how Meghan likes to meet the right people quietly and prepare U.S. voters for a possible deepfake onslaught as the campaign year goes into high gear. Which, don't be surprised if we hear Meghan's irritating voice in any of these campaigns to inoculate the public. I believe that this is what she's really focused on, and we're seeing all this nonsense intentionally to throw us off, in my opinion. Now, what I can say is that these three dissenting voices that did not agree with the 6 justices in this violation of First Amendment rights is a smoking gun for people like Meghan and Harry because of what they were doing during that time. We have the evidence of all of this and their involvement. And where I see this going, or where I'd like to see this going, is to understand if Harry was here on an A1 visa, which means the United States was recognizing him as a head of state from the UK, then we really need to understand a bit better as to how is it that he knew about January 6th and what his involvement was with the tech platforms in working with the censorship industrial complex. We all know how much Harry and Meghan love those Sussex Squad bots and how hateful they can be. Who's to say that some of them were programmed to do exactly that on the day of January 6th. And I think that's an important question that needs to be answered. At the same time, he should also be asked about the dark money that is being funneled from Archewell Fugazi Public Charity into some of these political action committees, like A Color of Change. The investments that they have been making in censorship under the guise of rebuilding the online community should also be questioned and investigated. But that's just my opinion. But what do you guys think? Do you think Meghan Markle is at home making jam, or do you think that she's up to no good? I personally think that she's doing the latter. These stories that we see here are all, in my gut feeling, distractions. I truly believe that these two are up to no good, especially Meghan. I really do feel like she's getting ready to toss Harry aside. I think shit is about to hit the fan, and she is about to throw him under the bus. As corrupt as these two both are, make no mistake about it, but Meghan will always put saving herself first. Sorry, Harry, you made your deal with the devil, and there is no one here to save you, so sorry. I have zero sympathy for whatever's gonna happen to you. And just think, neither does his bitch wife. She's gonna make Harry get up on that stage to accept that Pat Tillman Award, despite the potential of actually being booed on that stage and more backlash coming his way. Also, Meghan can dress up and hog another red carpet. Hopefully someone will scream, "Move along, Meg," to this washed up D-list has-been, or never was, D-list actress. Anyhow, what do you guys think? Definitely leave your thoughts below. This was a quick and short video today. As always, I will be back with more content, but until then, please be safe, and I'll talk to you later. Bye!
Such a fraud.